Hello, and welcome back to Animated Literacy. This is lesson number 52 from the Story Song and Action book. In this lesson, we're going to be learning about a new character named Woody Woodchuck. Before we do that, we're going to go back and do a bit of review. Our last character that we met is Lulu Moose. And Lulu Moose and Woody Woodchuck have a lot in common because Lulu Moose mostly spells her sound with O-O. She can also spell it with U-E, U-I, E-W, and O-U. So she has many ways to spell her sound. Woody Woodchuck spells his sound with the same O-O that Lulu Moose uses, but he has a different sound that we're going to be learning. So after we learned the story for Lulu Moose, we learned to gesture and say her sound by pretending to have a loose tooth, putting our finger in front of our mouth, wiggling that loose tooth and going, ooh, and then we drew some pictures that have Lulu Moose's ooh sound in them. So here's our chart to go up on the word wall, and all of these pictures over here had Nellie Newt sound, and then this last column has pictures with Lulu Moose, and we drew most of those in our lesson last time. So here we have a moose, a goose, a caboose, a flute, and fruit. And then we ran out of space on that chart, so we added some more here. And here we have a boot, and we have a moon, and a poodle, and a doodle, and a noodle, and a spoon. So when we did our drawing last time, after the lesson, I went back and did like I suggest that you do, and I practiced drawing all of these again. And then I started adding some adjectives to them. And the first adjectives that we added were our color words, just like we've done before. So I made it a green caboose, although that green kind of turned out kind of blue on here. Then I decided to use some words that were not color words. So we talked about the word crescent is a curve, and so we have a crescent moon. And then we have a spoon, and here I decided to give our moose a name. So I used the word Lou to make him a boy moose, and then I wrote the sentence, Lou is a funny moose. Then over here, we had three words that rhymed, and we drew two of those together. We did the poodle, and we did the cup of noodles. So poodle and noodle rhyme. And then down here, I drew a picture of a doodle, and the doodle can be anything. So I just kind of put a spiral and put like you might find the tail of a kite with some little ribbons on the end, and just called that a doodle. Now, when I want to do my labeling, I want to use as interesting a labeling as possible. So we started out with our adjectives, and we read Brian Cleary's book about hairy, scary, ordinary that told us about the word adjective. So I'm always looking for books that have all kinds of interesting adjectives in them. And this is a fun book from Matthew Van Fleet that is called Dog. And it starts out reading like this. Fluffy dog, scruffy dog, droopy dog sags, perky little puppy dog, wag, wag, wag. So when I labeled my poodle, I decided I want to find a fun word to use in labeling that poodle. So I went over here to the chart that I made of all of the adjectives that are in the book Dog, and I found the word perky. What does perky mean? Oh, it's real lively, it bounces around, and most puppies are pretty perky. Then when it came to the noodles, I went looking for an interesting word for noodle, and I found droopy. What does droopy mean? Oh, those noodles just kind of sag down like this. They don't stand up very well after they've been put in hot water and they've been cooked. And then for my doodle, I looked down here and I found the word fancy. So when you are doing your labeling, if you read with your teacher or parent some books that have lots of adjectives in them, and we've suggested many books for this in our handbooks, then you can simply go to this chart, check to see which of those words you could use to describe your picture, and write that word, and then draw an arrow to the word. So then, at the end of our lesson last time, we rewrote Ache and Drum. And so our verse for Ache and Drum sang like this. There was a man lived in the moon, in the moon, in the moon. There was a man lived in the moon, and his name was Ache and Drum. And his hair was made of noodles, noodles, noodles. And his hair was made of noodles, and his name was Aiken Drum. So here, I drew a picture of our man in the moon named Aiken Drum, and I gave him hair with noodles. Then I labeled man. I wrote the man in the moon for my title. Then in the song, he's described as a funny man. So instead of a color word, I used the word funny. Then for noodles, I put droopy yellow noodles. And for hair, in the book Dog, I found the word sloppy. And you can see this is kind of sloppy hair. So each time you draw, you can label your picture, you can label parts of the picture, and you can start putting adjectives to describe those. And you can start with your color words and then start finding other kinds of words to do your labeling. Now, a fun way to do this, I showed you this book earlier. This is a really good book that you can use on your own. And all I did to make this book is in the back of our Draw to Read and Write book. There's all the steps that I need for drawing things. So if I want to draw a boot, here's all the steps I can use for drawing a boot. If I want to draw a goose, here's the steps we used to draw our picture of our goose. So in the front of the book, it has all these steps for all of the things that I teach how to draw. Then in the back of the book, I put charts like the one I just showed you from the book Dog that has all these adjectives. So now after I've done my drawing and I've labeled the drawing and I've labeled the parts, I can just go to the back of the drawing book, find my chart of all these adjectives that came from different books that we've read together, and then I can choose adjectives from here to make my labeling real interesting. And then later we'll have charts for other kinds of words. Right now we just have two kinds. We have our nouns and we have our adjectives, but there's more than that, so we'll be adding more as we go along. Now, the sound that we learned to draw with last time, our oo sound that we were drawing with here, is a really special sound. So let me talk just a little bit about why oo is so special. When you were born, babies aren't able to make the sounds that we use when we speak. And so here's all the sounds that our characters make, and those are the sounds that we use when we're talking. But babies can't make those sounds. They can make noises. They just can't make the noises that we make when we're talking. Then all over the world, at about 2 months old to 4 months old, babies start to make the first sounds of language. And Patricia Kuhl is a professor who spent over 20 years going all over the world to figure out what sounds babies make first. And she found that oo is one of the first 3 sounds that babies all over the world make when they start making the sounds that we use to talk. The other sounds were E and Ah. So Ollie Ostrich is one of those sounds, and Lulu Moose is one of those sounds, and Eve is the other sound. And we'll be learning her story and song just a little bit later. So when you were about 2 to 4 months old, you started going, ooh, and babies all over the world did the same thing because that sound is part of every one of the world's languages. So that makes it pretty special. Now in today's story, we're going to be learning about Woody Woodchuck. So let's talk just a little bit about woodchucks, and they're kind of interesting animals. Here is a couple pictures of a woodchuck. Now another name for a woodchuck is a groundhog. So whether you call it a woodchuck or you call it a groundhog, it's the same thing. And here you can see that groundhogs have big claws because they dig in the ground and they live about 2 to 4 feet down under the ground, and so they have to dig those holes. This is an old tongue twister about woodchucks that's kind of fun to say. So I'll say it to you. See if you can say it after me. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck? Could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Now chucking means to throw things. Do you think a woodchuck throws wood? Nah. So a woodchuck does not chuck wood. They dig in the ground. So there's a couple pictures of woodchucks, and you can see over here, this is their paw or their hand, and look at those claws that they have for digging. So they're one of the best diggers in all of the animal kingdom. They also have teeth that are not like ours. Our teeth, when your baby teeth fall out and you grow your permanent teeth, once they grow to their normal size, they stop growing. But a woodchuck's teeth never stop growing. So they have to keep chewing on things or their teeth would get so long that they wouldn't be able to eat anymore. So here's a woodchuck that has been gnawing and nibbling, and he's kept his teeth from getting too long. I don't know what happened to this woodchuck, but he didn't do enough chewing, and so his teeth grew to where now you can see it would be really difficult for that woodchuck to eat anything. Woodchucks live in burrows down under the ground, and this is a picture of burrow. And their burrow, just like your house, has rooms in it. So they have a room for sleeping, they have a room for a bathroom, they have another room where they have their babies, and they have another room that's called a turnaround room, where they just go in and turn around and come back out again. Now, woodchucks are special because they have their own day of the year. And it's called Groundhog Day because, again, groundhogs are the same thing as woodchucks. So every February the 2nd, in places where it's really cold and snowy, people get very tired of winter. So they watch the woodchuck to see how long it's going to be before winter goes away and spring comes and warms up the weather. And so when the woodchuck comes out on February 2nd for Groundhog Day, if he sees his shadow, it means there's going to be 6 more weeks of winter. So people don't want the woodchuck to see his shadow. If he does not see his shadow, then it means it's going to be an early spring and pretty soon things are going to warm up. Now, a woodchuck has one burrow that they dig for the winter when they hibernate, and they sleep all winter. Their heart slows down to only about 4 beats a minute, where our hearts beat usually somewhere around 60 beats a minute when we're awake. So in the winter, they have their winter home, and they build it kind of in the forest so that it's very hard to find and they're very protected. Then when it warms up, they leave, they move out, and they build another burrow by digging in the ground. And they like to do that near a farmer's farm or out in the fields where they can eat grass. And so when they leave, other animals move in. And so this is a Skybrary story about Groundhog Day. And this is a Skybrary story about what happens when the woodchuck or the groundhog moves out of its house and all these other animals decide to move in. Here's a couple other Skybrary books about woodchucks that are fun to read. This one is called Go to Sleep, Groundhog. Well, this is a groundhog that was supposed to go to sleep for the winter, but he couldn't sleep. So he decided to go out and see what was happening during the months when groundhogs are usually underground. And he discovered all kinds of things going on that he never could have imagined. And this is another similar story about a groundhog who doesn't sleep but goes out to explore when the other groundhogs are sleeping. Now, our story today is also going to have cookies in it. This is a very famous, popular book about cookies called If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. And so it talks about if you do give the mouse a cookie, it's going to want a glass of milk. And then if you give it a glass of milk, it's going to want a straw. And then after it gets its straw, it's going to want to have a napkin to clean up. But every time you give the mouse something, he wants something else. Then Laura Numeroff, who wrote this book, also wrote If You Give a Moose a Muffin. And the same similar kind of thing happens in this story. So now let's look at Woody Woodchuck's story. And here again is a picture of Woody Woodchuck and his cookie tree. So here's Woody Woodchuck with his mother. And Woody Woodchuck's mother tells him, Woody, when you're underground, you need to eat the roots that grow down from the plants because those are healthy. And then when you come out of your hole, you need to eat healthy fruits and vegetables like we see in these two Skybrary books. But Woody Woodchuck likes cookies. So whenever Woody Woodchuck's mother isn't looking, he goes out of his hole, and fortunately he lives in a cookie forest. So where Woody lives, cookies grow on trees. So he reaches up and he picks the cookies out of the tree and eats the trees. And when his mother catches him, what do you think his mother says? Woody, what did I say? Eat roots and fruits and vegetables, not cookies. Cookies aren't good for you. Well, one day, Woody Woodchuck went out into the cookie forest, and he was so disappointed when he discovered he had eaten all the cookies that he could reach. And the cookies that were still in the cookie tree were so high up in the air that he had to have binoculars to look for those cookies. Well, when he found them in his binoculars, then he thought, how am I going to get those cookies down? So he tried all kinds of things. He made a stack of books, and he tried to climb up on top of the books, but he still couldn't reach the cookies. He got a ladder and tried climbing up, but the ladder wasn't tall enough, so he couldn't reach the cookies. Finally, he got so frustrated that he took a hold of that cookie tree and he shook it as hard as he could shake. And when he shook the cookie tree, all of a sudden these leaves and cookies came falling out of the tree, and as good luck would have it, one of those cookies landed right on his foot and another landed right on his stomach. Well, Woody was so happy. He picked up the cookies, and just as he went to take a bite of cookie, who do you think appeared? Mother Woodchuck. And what do you think Mom said to Woody? Woody, what did I tell you? No cookies. What are you supposed to eat? Roots, fruits, and vegetables. So whenever you see our picture of Woody Woodchuck, I want you to think about the cookies that he likes to eat and how he had to look for those cookies by using his binoculars. So you can pretend like you've got a pair of binoculars you're looking through here, and you can make binoculars with your two O's that spells his sound, put them up, and you can go, ugh. Or another way to make Woody Woodchuck sound is after he shook the cookie tree, the biggest, ripest cookie came down out of that tree, hit him in the stomach, and what did he say? Ugh. So you can either go, ugh, like this, or you can go, ugh, like this. Now we need to find out if Woody Woodchuck's sound is a consonant or a vowel. So let's put it into Are You Sleeping? Now what is it that Woody's doing? He's looking, okay? Are you looking for cookies? Are you looking for cookies? Woody Woodchuck, Woody Woodchuck. Woody's bells are saying, Woody's bells are saying, uh, 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 uh. So is that a vowel or consonant? Vowel. How do you know? Because we didn't put anything with it. What would it be if we did our drum? Woody, are you looking for cookies? Are you looking for cookies? Woody Woodchuck, Woody Woodchuck. Woody's drum is saying, Woody's drum is saying, uh, 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 uh. Vowel, okay? So now let's learn Woody Woodchuck's song. First, Woody Woodchuck stood under the cookie tree. So I want you to sing this back to me. Woody stood. Now I want you to stand up, and I won't stand up because I'll disappear off the screen. Woody stood under a tree. So show me standing, and then show me the branches of your tree. Woody stood under a tree. Woody stood under a tree. Show me looking. Looking for good cookies. Looking for good cookies. Now take hold of that tree. Woody shook the cookie tree. Woody shook the cookie tree. Put your hands up in the air. Down came the cookies. Down came the cookies. Show me the two O's for Woody Woodchuck. O, O is for Woody Woodchuck. O, O is for Woody Woodchuck. Looking for good cookies. Looking for good cookies. Woody shook the cookie tree. Woody shook the cookie tree. Down came the cookies. Down came the cookies. Okay, let's try that now with our recording. And this time I'll point to the words and you show me the gestures, okay? So here we go. Let's try that once more.
stood under a tree, looking for good cookies. Woody shook the cookie tree, down came the cookies. O, O is for Woody Woodchuck, looking for good cookies. Woody shook the cookie tree, down came the cookies.
Okay, so when you get your picture of Woody Woodchuck, think again about the things that happened in his story, and if there's anything in your life that's kind of similar to Woody Woodchuck. Are there things that you like to eat that your parents would rather have you eat something else? So we talked about this before with Crazy Camel. Crazy Camel was kind of like Woody Woodchuck. She liked to eat candies and cookies and cakes when she should have been eating vegetables and fruits. And Woody also eats the roots that keep his, and by gnawing on the roots, it keeps his teeth from growing too long. So you could make, like you did before, a list of things that are healthy for you to eat and things that are not as healthy for you to eat. Woody Woodchuck had a hard time because he was too short to reach the cookies up high in the cookie tree. Are there things that you are too short to reach? If you're too little to reach something, what are some things that you would do? Would you stack books? Would you get a ladder? Who could you ask to get you to get to help? Woody Woodchuck lives down in a burrow underneath the ground, and when he moves out, other animals move in. Have you ever had to move? Maybe you had to move houses or move cities. So you could draw a picture and write a sentence or a story about a time you've moved. So you could write about healthy or unhealthy foods. You can write about things that are too tall for you to reach. You could write about a time when you've moved. Maybe it wasn't your house. Maybe you had to move schools, or maybe you had to move classrooms. So I hope you enjoyed our story about Woody Woodchuck. And when we come up next time, we're going to be drawing and labeling some things once again that have Woody Woodchuck sounds. So I hope to see you then.